You know, I said this on my Instagram, and the people that follow me, they were upset about this. But I don't care.
We're recording.
Cool.
All right, welcome to the Place of Peace podcast. We are here with a special guest, Devhonte Johnson. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Just had a great seminar. Appreciate you coming out.
Thank you for having me and showing me a good time.
Do you do a lot of seminars? You looked pretty comfortable up there.
Yeah. I try to get like once a month.
Okay.
Ideally, sometimes some months are, some phases, if you will, quarters are better than others, but the goal is to like get at least one a month. You know, and this month I'll have like 3, but so this is a good month.
A lot of traveling, like around the country, or mostly local, or
well, we had this one here, which is local, if you can say that.
just
2 hours.
get as close to that as you can.
No, yeah. So this one was local, if you can say that, and I have 2 more in France coming up at the end of the month.
Oh,
so
nice.
I'll be out there for a bit. And,
do those feel like vacations? Like they fly you out? Like it's the whole thing?
It's weird because it does, but it doesn't.
Okay.
You know, because like if you do a good job with a seminar, you're exhausted afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you try to connect with every person that comes to the seminar. You know, and sometimes you have a seminar it's like 10 people. And you're like, damn, would have been nice to have a bigger turnout. But
yeah.
Okay. Then you have some seminars, like the biggest seminar I've had was like 100 and some change. I stopped counting after like 110.
Wow.
But and you're like, it's a lot of people to like try to like have like
connect with,
like a connection with, but you try to make a strong effort because when people leave, you want them to feel like they had a piece of you a little bit, so that they'd want to have you back,
right?
And
so you'll try to like go around to every group, or like what's your way of like trying?
I don't try to go around every group. I definitely will at some point in the seminar talk to every group.
Wow. Okay.
But like a lot of times it didn't happen today because I misjudged how far you guys were out. I didn't realize that you guys were like almost 2 hours out.
Craig
didn't know where you were.
No, it depends on how fast you drive, right? I can make it to New York in an hour and 15.
Hour and 15.
Yeah, I mean I'm trying. I have world titles to win still, so I want to make it there alive.
Right.
So we got here like 10 minutes early, so it was like not that much time, but typically I try to show up like 30 minutes to an hour early. And as people come in, you try to greet them as they come in, have a little bit of small talk so that you can, even before the seminar starts, they feel like you're personable. I think that's the word you want to use. So that, because sometimes people come in, look, I remember being a blue belt and a white belt. I think I went to my first seminar as a blue belt. And you come in, and the person thinks that like they're God's grace to like human, to like mankind. Yeah. They don't have time to talk. They're on their phone. They're in them. They're more.
Who are we talking about?
Just drop the name.
I won't drop the name. But, it's a type of type of person of course, that they're more concerned with them. So they're more in love with themselves than they are concerned with giving a good experience to the people that are there. I think, and a lot of times I think that people just come in and are like, oh, my gift is the fact that I'm here teaching. But I remember when I was a blue belt and I'm like, yo, I would like to feel like there's some level of approachability to this person, because I'm spending $100+ for their time, and I understand that it's their time, but I'm also paying for that time. So I try to do as good a job as I can to create small talk, have a good time, joke around, make jokes, make it fun for people, because people necessarily don't always remember what you teach them or what you do for them, but they always remember how you make them feel, So when I teach, when I train with people, when I teach seminars, I always try to make people feel like good or feel like there's a connection or that I'm palpable, because you never know how that person might help you in the future. I'm not saying oh, if I'm really nice to the student, they'll buy me a car or something like that, but I am I'm gonna be nice to the student, and you know, just because I'm going to be nice to the student. And sometimes, you know, when I need a PT, one of my students is like, hey, like, you know, like, did you know it's PT? And, you know, I'll hook you up. Like, come to my spot, you know, and you're just like, wow, like, I didn't even know who this person was outside of the mat, you know, but all of that interest that was put in of, you know, just trying to put, you know, your best foot forward in terms of interacting with that person, it pays off to a degree. Like, how you call it? Not directly, but indirectly.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because it's not what you're looking for, but it's what happens a lot of times. So you just never know who can help you, and you never know when you can help others. And so I always try to just, like, if people will remember me, I want them to remember me in a positive light.
Sure.
You know?
Is there a moment for you when you were like a white belt or blue belt where like somebody influenced you in a really positive way? Like maybe it was a really good class or a
It still
seminar.
happens to me as a black belt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
And like maybe they don't know it, but like
Oh,
they
of course.
like
Yeah.
inspired you to compete or.
I mean, like, I'll be honest with you. I remember, like, when I was a white belt, and I had maybe I was a blue belt. I probably was a white belt. I don't remember exactly. I'm not sure if I was in college when I got my blue belt already, or I went to college and then got my blue belt. But I was in college, and I think it was midterms or finals, something. I was taking some tests. And I was pulling an all-nighter anyway, so I happened to, like, be watching, like, a live stream of the Abu Dhabi World Pro.
Okay. Yeah.
And I remember watching Leandro for the first time doing jiu-jitsu, because, like, you know, I had heard, like, you hear about him because, like, that was, like, the time when he, like, started, like, making his ascension. And I remember watching his matches and just thinking, like, yo, like, I want to do that one day. You know what I mean? And I think that was the first time where, like, I was, like, where I could say in jiu-jitsu at least, like, I was watching someone and it, like, kind of, like, to the way that you said it, like, inspired me, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I just remember watching that tournament and watching him, and even Felipe Pena, actually, because I think Felipe Pena was in that tournament too. And I was just like, man, these guys are so good, you know. And Buchecha was there, and Rodolfo was there. It was a really good time for jiu-jitsu, actually. But Leandro was cool because he just had swag. You know what I mean? And I'm black and I'm a brother, and like, that like resonates. You know what I mean? When you see a dude that walks on the mat and he's got a little bit of swag with him, you don't have to speak the same language, but like you feel it. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, I like this guy.
I was gonna.
Everybody else is kind of just like, you know, like,
well, not you know, what I was gonna say is like because of the way like he moved, like you kind of identify with that, right? So like somebody who's very athletic and can move their body in certain ways, you're like, oh, I can see myself
get to
that.
The athleticism. I just got to he walking down, like, you know, he's bumping and like, you know, kind of like in his little zone, and I'm like, yo, this guy's got like some flow. And then you watch all the other guys, they're like all stiff and like, you know, like woosah, and, you know, like rigid fighting and shit. Excuse my language. And you know, you watch Leandro, he's just like, he's chilling, like he's like, you know, he's like at peace in the midst of chaos, so to speak, you know. And I'm just like, yeah, I like that. I like this guy. And that's when I really started following him. And I would say that's the first time, you know, where I had like a big, like, oh, you know, this is pretty cool. And I like a lot of the guys of that time. It just kind of like my I guess you would say influence just grew periodically because, you know, through watching more content of him, you start watching the guys that he's fighting, and then you're like, oh, Buchecha's really good. You know, Rodolfo's really good. Felipe Pena's really good. And, you know, those are like become the foundations and the meows and stuff like that, you know, watching them do what they were doing at that time in jiu-jitsu, where like these like featherweights weighing absolute divisions, you know. That's like the first indirect period where I was just kind of like, oh, like that was like really big for me. And as far as like knowing someone in jiu-jitsu, I think one of my mentors, who's like, he's not even wasn't an instructor, but he was a blue belt at the time that trained with me, and he was much older than I was. He was old enough to be my dad, like my grandfather probably, you know, honestly. He was up there. He's not.
I was like, wait a minute. And why is everybody looking at me?
But he was like 60, you know. He was like he was training. And
hey, don't look this way.
And you know, he was the first person to like tell me like, oh, you could really do some cool stuff in jiu-jitsu. Like you can be a world champ. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, what is Worlds? You know, you know, and then, you know, he paid for my first like trip, really, like out of the country, out of the state. You know, like going to California was like leaving the country. You know, I was a kid who grew up in the hood, and I had never gone anywhere further than a bus ride to New York. You know what I mean? Like, not even anywhere far. You know what I mean? Like just like, you know, in and out of New York. You know, and then you go to New York, but you don't really do nothing. You just look around, order $1 pizza,
get a hot dog and some dirty nuts.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Catch
From
a
the
dollar
stand.
bus back home. You know what I mean?
That's it.
Like, you don't even pay them. You just get on and be like, yeah, like give me a second. You know what I mean? You just get off at your stop. You know? So that was pretty crazy, and that was big for me. And I remember even after that tournament, like I think I won like 3 matches. And I was just like, man, he told me I could be a world champ. And I lost. You know, I went back, and then he was like, oh, that's not how life works. You know what I mean? Like, you got to work for it. And he always kept pushing me, you know, to like, because, you know, like when you meet adversity, it's almost like instinctive to like be like, are you sure? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I didn't really know jiu-jitsu. Like, I got into jiu-jitsu, and I had no idea what jiu-jitsu was. Like, I wasn't like a lot of these kids now who like, and even back then, like they start jiu-jitsu at like 5, 6 years old, and they're like, I'm gonna be like, you know, one of the best ever.
Yep.
I was just doing jiu-jitsu because I just needed something to do. You know, and I always wanted to try like karate. Like I used to watch like the karate flicks. Man, like when I was growing up, karate flicks were a thing.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Ain't nobody have cable. Like, you know, if you did, you stole it from somebody. You know what I mean? So, like, you know what I mean, you're on the pole yourself trying to like figure out how to like rearrange the wires. And but like everybody had VCRs, and everybody watched karate flicks. You know, like everybody watched Tai Chi Master and, you know, Iron Monkey and you know, Drunken Monk. You know, all those like, you know, old school karate flicks with like, you know, Jet Li and Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee.
And Bruce Lee.
So like everybody in the hood wants to try. Even Chuck Norris, like Walker Texas Ranger.
Chuck Norris like Larry Bird.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Nah, but he got credit in the hood, bro. Like
That's true.
Black people watch Walker Texas Ranger. My grandfather is 80. My grandfather 85 years old, and that man still watches Walker Texas Ranger.
I'm like, he couldn't beat Bruce Lee.
That's like the only white TV show that he watches. Walker Texas Ranger.
Walker Texas Ranger.
Yo,
he's a legit
Walker,
black belt in
Texas
jiu-jitsu too.
Yeah, and
Norris.
karate.
He's a Machado black belt.
Like
Machado,
and in karate.
Yeah.
Like he was the one
He's a
who
world
brought.
champ.
He was one of the guys that like kind of like brought some relevance to it. Like he was like,
Yep.
oh, like what's this jiu-jitsu stuff is real.
Yep.
It's the real deal. You know, and he was using it. Bro, if you go back and watch Walker Texas Ranger, he was using like jiu-jitsu in the fight scenes.
There's
like,
an
he's
episode
like doing
where
sumigashis and, you know, like rolling into arm bars. You know what I mean?
There's you're probably gonna say it, but there was like some Western. He may have directed it, like or been like the stunt guy for it, where it was an old video and a guy jumps a triangle. I'm like, wait a second, this is like old Western movie. The guy jumping a triangle.
Lethal Weapon. One of the original Lethal Weapons. Mel Gibson finishes the movie with the triangle.
Yeah,
I think one of the Gracies did like the stunts, or whatever. Yeah. But there's an episode of Walker Texas Ranger where he has like 3 of the Machado brothers on.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And he has them. Yeah, he has them come into the ring, and they're like demonstrating jiu-jitsu techniques.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. But yeah, man, like, so I was like I was heavily like into like that kind of stuff as a kid, and the only martial art a kid can afford in the hood is boxing. You know what I mean? Because you can go box for $10.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They look at you like what you doing here, shorty? Like, you know, give me $10. You know what I mean? Like, I'll sit you in the corner and you know, hit the punching bag or something like that. You know, but like jiu-jitsu is like. I remember when I first walked into a jiu-jitsu gym, I was like 17, and they're like, oh, 190. I was like, damn.
Yeah. What was the, not to cut you off, what was the first gym that you walked into? Like,
that's in Carvalho.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the first gym that I trained at. Then I went to Unity, and Unity.
Okay.
Now I have my own gym. So, but yeah, you know, so I had to put that on the back burner. I boxed, you know, for a little bit as a kid, off and on. And then once I was able to get like a little part-time job, I'll never forget, I actually trained my boss in personal training, because she was like, how do you get in such good shape? And I was like, she was like, I want to lose like 30 pounds. And I was like, you give me $2,000. I was like, you give me $2,000.
I got you.
And I'll help you lose 30 pounds in 2 months. Give me $1,000 for each month.
She gave you the money?
Yeah.
Oh,
she did it. Yeah.
wow.
That was the first time I ever had more than like a couple $100 on my account. And I used it to like pay for a little bit of jiu-jitsu, you know, for the first few months. And that's how I was able to do jiu-jitsu, actually, you know. And but yeah, you know, like, it was pretty cool. And I remember thinking to myself, like, how do you call it when like you kind of like how like when you're a kid and someone does something for you, but like when you finally get to do it for yourself, you know what I mean? There's like there's like an extra level of like investment.
Oh, I know
like,
you're talking. Yeah. It's like when you like go to school, like you're going to college, but you're paying for it out of pocket, so you do better.
Exactly.
You're more, I mean,
So like, I just kind of like I was like, yo, I'm paying for this. I gotta like come.
Yeah.
And I remember I was really concerned about like not being consistent. But I remember the first day I was just like all the way in, and I've never like looked back like since I got into it. Yeah.
Nice. All right.
Yeah, that's an interesting point though. There's such a barrier to entry for jiu-jitsu. I mean, it's so expensive. And you wonder like what the competitive landscape would look like if it wasn't that way. Like if would more kids be doing jiu-jitsu? Like what's the way to kind of break that down or whatever? I don't know,
man, cuz
like is there an interest in jiu-jitsu that's like more like, I mean, obviously we all want the sport to grow, but or kids would rather be doing football, basketball, stuff like that?
I think if I was to be 1000% honest, I think like in suburban areas, martial arts is a big thing because the parents understand the value of adversity. I think like the work ethic that they learn from coming
discipline
from like they come to jiu-jitsu with the intent for you to like kind of like discipline. Honestly, they're like, look, tag, you're in. Help me raise this kid. Pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, another part of it, like especially with like people that live in the suburbs, like suburban kids, like they don't have a lot of adversity outside of jiu-jitsu, so I feel like their parents are like putting them in situations where it's like, all right, your life's not hard, so like we have to put you in situations where like you do need to fight a little bit, whereas I don't know, like the hood or like inner cities, like there's a ton of adversity they're facing all the time, right? For the maybe it's,
I think more for the inner city kids, like the parents don't have the means to pay for the martial arts, and you also have to get them there. In a lot of these situations, like these kids are going to after school programs, like they're being busied until their parents come home. The parent doesn't have the time. Like so many of my kids who like train at my gym, their parents work on their laptop while their kid is doing jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? Like the average inner city household, their parent doesn't get to work from a laptop. Their parent has to. Their time is directly traded for their income. Right. If that makes any sense. Like their in-person presence.
Yep.
Like
they have to be there. They have to be there.
To earn a living. Where like there's a lot more mobility in the middle to upper middle class like dynamic. So I think I would think that would be more of a deterrent for the inner city kids as opposed to necessarily their parents understanding that there's adversity everywhere. Because like my mom, for example, like she always wanted me doing stuff to build like my mental toughness and like like she had us playing basketball, like stuff that was like we can go do, like you could walk like 20 minutes and be at a basketball league somewhere in the hood, like, you know what I mean? But like ain't nobody open up a jiu-jitsu gym in the hood, like because you're just not. I'm sure that there are places out there where people who have the intent to like do that. But for the most part, most of these gyms are like, where can I open up a nice space in a nice place so that I can get people who can pay.
Exactly. Exactly.
And they're not going to even think about it. Like,
it's the
I
same
don't have to
reason,
ask them, like, at the beginning of the month, like, yo, like, your card declined.
They won't even think about it.
They don't even know. Like, they'll leave for 6 months and be like, oh, crap, we're still paying for jiu-jitsu. Let's go back. You know what I mean? Like, like, they want those kind of people and they want to be around those kind of people, which is business. You know what I mean? I get it.
Like, down in, like, Brazil, like, that's like...
It's the culture.
It's the culture, right? It's like, hey, come on and bring your kids in. We're family, da da da.
Well, they have a lot of social projects in Brazil, and there's not much of that here. No. It would be cool to do that one day. I always wanted to have that as a goal, like later in my life, like after I'm done competing, when I have more time to dedicate to other people. Because like right now, I'm selfish as hell. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I have to like negotiate, like find time to like spend with my girlfriend, and my family. Like I have no time to be dedicating to other people like outside of my community that I have already,
for sure,
because I'm still trying to build a business as well. So like for me to add that time to be a competitor still, I have competitors that train under me and I'm trying to build a business. I wouldn't want to start something and half-ass it. Because when you do something like that, those people need a lot of time.
Yep.
And they need a lot of energy.
Yeah, for sure.
And
for sure.
You never know, especially with kids. Like, I have a nephew and I have a niece. I don't make promises to my nephews or my nieces because adults break promises all the time. So I don't like telling my nephew, like, hey, I'm going to do this, or like my niece, like, hey, I'm going to be here. Like, I learned this the hard way as an adult. Like,
right.
Actually, I realized that I was doing something that adults had done to me, and I could see as an adult how it was impacting the kids that I was doing this to, subconscious, like unconsciously, unaware of what I was doing, and like with my students. And I was just like, all right, I'm gonna stop doing that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, if my students have a party and they invite me, I'm like, I don't know if I can go, but I'll try.
Right, and it's better to
You know
surprise
what I
them
mean?
and show up than
It's
to
better.
promise and not
Like,
come.
I have students who
Yeah.
wrestle and stuff like that. I don't even tell them. I don't even talk to them. I'll be like, yo, I'll hit their parents up and I'll be like, hey, send me the schedule, and I'll try to make a game.
Right.
I'll try to make a match, but I'm not
For
promising.
sure.
You know
For
what I mean?
sure.
They'll hit me up and be like, hey, we're in the area. I'm like, I don't know. Like, you're hitting me at midday.
I don't know.
You know what I mean? I got a whole day plan. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that, but I'll let you know. You know, I don't like to make promises, especially to kids. So, like, if you do get kids who come into those type of things where, like, you know, if we have, like, if I'm luckily, God willing, able to, like, have, like, you know, an American version, if you will, of a social project, those kids coming off the streets, they want someone to, like, invest their time in them.
Sure.
They're looking for someone to, like, kind of, like, take them along. Like, you have, when someone like that is open to receive, you have to be willing to, like, pour into the cup.
For sure.
Because, like, that's just gonna reduce the amount of like sensitivity or like their openness to like the next person, you know, who might want to really help them. You know what I mean? Because I know that was what it was like for me when I was a kid.
Yep.
And I first started doing jiu-jitsu. Like, I was an older kid. I was like 17. I consider myself a kid because I think of who I was at 17. Even then, like, the guys would be like, "Oh, we'll give you a ride home." I'm like, no, you're not. Like, I'm good. They're like, yo, it's 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. You know what I mean? You shouldn't be walking to the area. I'm like, I'll take my chances. I know what I'm gonna walk into on Godwin Ave. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know. You lock that door. I don't know what I'm like. I don't know what type of party this is. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're a grown ass man. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
My jiu-jitsu is only so good right
yeah,
now.
like, right. I'm just settling into puberty too. You got grown man strength. You know what I mean? Like. So I was like, they would make fun of me all the time because I didn't trust nobody. You know what I mean? But like,
but that's kind of like how we grew up too, though.
yeah,
Right? It's like,
you know, like why you want to help me? Like,
Nah.
like none, like that's not like you ain't trying to do that for free. Like, you know, that's like the mentality.
Yep.
But then you realize like, oh, like people do things without the intent of like needing something in return.
Yep.
But that's something you have to learn when you come from that environment.
For sure.
You know, but if you have someone, if like you step out of your environment, like I was stepping out of my environment. You get exposed to someone who's going to like abuse that naivety, right? And they pretend like they're helping you, but then they do the exact opposite. You're like, all right, see, I knew it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, now I know. Like, I knew I got to trust my intuition, you know?
That's right.
So, like, it's always important. Like, if you're that, you never know if you're that first person. Just like coming to a seminar, like I was saying with the seminar before. Like, you come to a seminar, you never know if you're going to be, like, who you never know who's on that mat if it's their first seminar. If you come in and you act like an ass, they're like, yo, I'm never gonna do this again. Now you're taking money out of somebody else's pocket. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Or your pocket potentially in the future.
Coming back,
Yeah.
right?
Because like this school is not like going to have you back. You know, your goal should be to create a reoccurring customer.
Sure.
You know, and hopefully you can do something yearly. You know what I mean? And you know, if you come in, you know, with your nose up in the air, you know, and not approachable, like they're gonna be like, yo, like we spent all this money to have this guy here, and I can't even like get
That's
him,
right.
you know, drink of water. You know what I mean? Like, he said he needed a Pellegrino. Like,
Matter of fact,
glass bottle too.
Do
You know what I
we
mean? Like,
offer him water?
you drink out of plastic.
Ray, get the water.
Like, you know what I mean? He said Polish Spring is no good. You know what I mean? Like,
Nah, for
so,
sure,
like,
for
yeah,
sure.
man.
That's
Yeah.
definitely the way.
First impressions are everything.
I'll jump in real quick because you had mentioned something about like peace in a time of chaos, right?
Yeah.
So like one of the things that we really talk about here at the Place of Peace is like what the Place of Peace means to you and you know, to all people, right? So you know, take a second to think about it. But for you, what is your place of peace in life?
So that's a very interesting question. Simple question, but maybe you'll think my perspective on that is as interesting as I think it is. Since I was like 17, my place of peace, if you will, has always been like the mat, like jiu-jitsu. For a multitude of reasons, because like I mean, like when I realized, like, as I like started growing into adulthood, that a lot of the friends, you know, like maybe 50% of the friends that I had, like I needed to eliminate from my circle. And but like they weren't really friends, like to the point where it was like I had to be like, oh man, I really have to like cut these people off. It was just kind of like, yeah, I knew you were like not really good for me, so like now it's time to really do that. You know what I mean? For me to get to the next level. Yep. But the people that I knew were good for me, like I always knew that they would transcend whatever environment that I had grew into. But I realized when I started doing jiu-jitsu that like jiu-jitsu put a lot of the right people in my life. Right. And there were some bad people. You know what I mean? Like plenty of bad people. So I won't lie. You know, but because of my time doing jiu-jitsu, it gave me the skills necessary to deal with those people the right way. In a way that, you know, I could like look back and be like, you know, this wasn't an ideal situation, and this person didn't handle the relationship the way I would have preferred. But the way I responded to their choices doesn't degrade who I am as a person. Right. And I don't say that like at 28 years old I can say something like this now. But I don't say that knowing, like I didn't really know that in the moment. I couldn't put words to that, but I kind of knew that was what I was trying to do. Right. Because like through jiu-jitsu I was always trying to get better at grappling, but like at least for me, like getting better at jiu-jitsu kind of like meant like me like evolving as a person, dealing with certain insecurities and just dealing with bad habits or tendencies and traits. And trust me, there are a lot of them. So like me doing jiu-jitsu was like an evolutionary phase. Okay. And I grew up in, you know, a really bad area, but I didn't want to be representative. I didn't want like where I grew up to be a representation of what people saw when they interacted with me. Right. So like when you don't have things in place, or like, you know, like a lot of kids who come up in, you know, better situations, they have like people in place to help them like get to where they're trying to go because they've experienced it, they've felt it, they've been through it. And a lot of things that I dealt with as I was growing up, they were all new. Okay. And I didn't really have many people from where I had grew up that could give me valid information. But the people that I met in jiu-jitsu were like the bridge to what I wanted to be, and they allowed me to grow. They gave me you know, the blueprint to grow into a better person over time. And I it's invaluable. Like, you know, so like I can never thank jiu-jitsu enough. Just like jiu-jitsu period. And the people that I've met in jiu-jitsu, the good and the bad people, you know, because the bad people also taught me what I didn't want to be when I did have a position to like impact other people. And even though we fall short, because nobody's perfect and we make a lot of mistakes, and a lot of times, you know, we do things and no one ever knows about it, but we know that we didn't make the best choice, or we didn't treat the situation with the best foot forward that we could have put into it. Right. But you know, for me, like jiu-jitsu kind of was always a way for me to be like, all right, I need to keep trying to just be better. You know, like I can't change, you know, how I started, and you know the decisions that I made in the past. And you can't change when you fall short in the present, but you can always take your best foot forward moving forward. You know, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
So it's like jiu-jitsu, like you're minimizing your mistakes as you learn.
Absolutely.
Every day, right? So.
And you don't run away from the fact that you do make mistakes. That's right. You're just trying to trying to do better as you move forward. That's why jiu-jitsu was always like kind of like, that's why when I started jiu-jitsu it became like my place of peace, so to speak. Yep. Because like a lot of those, even like interacting with people and being an asshole and not knowing that you're an asshole, you know what I mean? Like if you do it on the mat, like they're gonna be like, all right, look, you know, you're 19, like, you know, you don't know yet how to deal with people, you know, like, hey, like you can't do this, you know, and you know, luckily I learned it on the mat, you know, and there's some black belt or something like that, and they're like, hey, this is how you do this, you know, right? Not me being in the street and then getting punched in the face or beat upside the head and having to learn the hard way, or just seeing certain tendencies and being like, yo, like I don't have to make these mistakes out in life. I can make them on the mat and they can pretty much go away, but I know the repercussions of that behavior, so I don't have to exploit it. I don't have to like go through it in life, and that was like that was invaluable for me, because a lot of things that I went through when I was a kid, my early adulthood too, like you're just learning on the fly. And a lot of times you're like, people do something bad to you and you're like, oh, this is how I need to do things, you know what I mean? You're like, yo, like you're trying to be a criminal, like I don't think so, like,
right.
You know what I mean, like you probably shouldn't go that far, you know what I mean? Like there are other ways to deal with things,
For sure.
And jiu-jitsu it kept a positive light, because it's always easy to revert back to the dark side, so to speak, like especially when people do you wrong, or when you're dealing with adversity, it's easy to like revert into like negativity and stuff like that, and jiu-jitsu was always like a positive beacon more than it was negative.
Right.
And as I'm older now, like it has like come full circle, because when I was a kid, like, and I didn't have jiu-jitsu and I didn't start sports just yet, like my mind was like my place of peace, so to speak.
Okay.
So like kind of like just like being by myself in my own head was like a reprieve from reality. Everything going on. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
As I've gotten older, and I'm not like the younger guy in jiu-jitsu anymore, and like I'm more in a position of kind of like trying to help younger people kind of like do better, you know, and kind of like be where I was when I was coming up, kind of like do the same thing for other people. I find myself less reliant on jiu-jitsu and more in my own head, so to speak, just like analyzing like the process or the path that I've taken, so to speak, and just learning more from myself that way.
What do they call it? They call it it's kind of not self reprieve. Reflection, yeah, like reflection on yourself, your experiences, and everything in life, right? So it's like, okay, this is how I would do it now that I'm older, now that I'm more mature. Go ahead. Yeah. So, little Marcus Aurelius over there.
Meditations,
yes.
No, I'm big on that stuff, because I feel like when I was younger, I moved too fast, and sometimes people tell me I move too slow, but I'd rather move slow, but the right way, as opposed to like just moving and not being present.
For sure.
So that's why I said that was an interesting question, because it was kind of like when I was a kid, it was my mind, and as I became like a teenager and I started jiu-jitsu, like I would do jiu-jitsu and not think about like the stuff that was going on. I just kind of like, I involuntarily was becoming a better person because of the people that I decided to put myself around in jiu-jitsu. Right. And they were molding me without me realizing it, even though I was realizing it because I was going with it, if that makes any sense. Sure. And then as I became more in a position to like be like kind of like, I don't want to say like a leader, but like you're more in like a position where you are responsible for other people. Right. You have to face that, because now these people are asking you questions that might, and like your advice impacts someone else's life.
Definitely.
So like there's no avoiding that now,
because they're going to ask you, right? Like, absolutely, and they're going to bring everything to you as a student, right? So you have somebody that comes in as a hobbyist, having a good day at work, bad day at work, wife, children, whatever the case may be. They're going to look to you for advice, right? 100%. So anything you want to ask?
No, I think we can wrap it up. We're a little over 30. I don't want to hold you up too long. We definitely we appreciate your time.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for the seminar. Thanks for joining us on the podcast today.
Anything else you got in store for 2023 you want to talk about?
A lot of winning, bro.
A lot of winning.
Trying to win worlds. Trying to win
what's
ADCC
next up?
Europeans.
Okay.
I want to win that too, but definitely worlds and ADCC trials.
That's no-gi?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like gi and no-gi. There's not too many people doing both nowadays, but I like gi and no-gi.
No, for sure.
I want to do well in both. That's it.
No, that's cool. That's cool. I'll just drop one last ask, and what is your favorite anime? We'll leave it at this.
Ooh, that's a tough question. Huh. Wow. So, I said this on my Instagram, and the people that follow me, they were upset about this. But I don't care.
Say it again.
So
Say it again.
I'll be honest. So like, there are some anime that are sacred. You know what I mean? Like, they don't count with like everything else, and you don't count them against one another. Almost like superpowers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, or like, how that you have the what do they call it? With the 4 presidents.
Rushmore.
Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
You don't say one president's better. Like, Abe isn't better than George Washington.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
So you want me to say top 5? I'm going to say
no. I got you.
1.
But like, Yu Yu Hakusho, Dragon Ball Z, I don't count them.
Okay.
With other animes.
Okay.
Right, and same thing with Cowboy Bebop. All right. Do you know Cowboy Bebop?
I do not.
All right. So Cowboy Bebop. Right. You watch anime?
I watch enough.
All right. Good.
Yeah.
All right, so good. All right. So you're not a connoisseur.
I'm not a connoisseur, right?
So like, yeah, like those 3 anime, I don't count them with anything else. So like, they're just like the holy trinity, if you will. Not to be disrespectful to people's religions, but like, you just can't compare them and you can't contrast them.
Nope.
And Naruto has now ascended into that like pantheon
Okay.
of anime. So I will not include those.
Okay. So that,
Okay.
there's 4 crossed off.
They're on their own. Like, they're in their own universe. But outside of that, I like that time I got reincarnated as a slime. That's one of my favorite.
Okay.
ones.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm a big fan of like, it's a genre. It's called like, I think it's pronounced isekai.
Okay.
And it's like where like people die in the real world and they get a new lease on life. They get to have a second chance in the real in like another world. And like, so like they die, like maybe they're like a terrible person, in like the real world, like our world. And like they die and they realize like, damn, I died because I was like, I spent my whole life being this kind of person.
Yep.
And like they get a chance to like kind of like reinvent themselves, or they die as like, they're a great person. They just have an untimely like death, and then they like try to do more of that in the next world,
right?
And like they change the complexion of that world. And sometimes like I think like the world itself is like so like negative that it's cool to have like those like happy-go-lucky animes where like everything is gonna go right. You know what I mean? The good guy's definitely gonna win because it's like a break from like reality where nothing goes right and the good guys always lose.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like all the bad guys win. So you can't trust anything. So like I kind of like immersing myself in like those like alternate realities. So like that's why I like that one. And that one's pretty cool if you watch it. Like Rimuru is like the main character. He's like the slime, and he becomes like this pretty much OP character. And he like creates this nation, and it's kind of like it's just like a comedy.
There you go.
But it's got like some badass like fight scenes in it. I'm a big fan of it.
Have you? Do you have any interest in like making your own anime or like getting into that?
So I am not
work?
that artistic.
No,
and
okay.
I made sure I said that. In the
Artistic.
I am not. I'm not that skillful with.
If you were an anime character, what would you or animal character like a you know how like martial arts has like insects and dragon,
like mantis style and all that
right.
nonsense.
What would you be?
Interesting. Well, I don't know if I can answer that question, but like I will say this: if I was an animal, I'd want to be a silverback gorilla.
Okay.
Yeah, or a grizzly bear.
Okay.
Because they just fuck shit up. Like nobody really like they have no predators. Really, like the only predators that they have are humans.
Are you someone who watches like animals fighting each other videos all the time? Okay.
When I was a kid, like I was like one of those kids, like Animal Planet was my
alligators
favorite.
versus
Right.
Dude, the Crocodile Hunter was my guy.
Yeah.
I cried like a little punk when Steve Irwin died.
Yep.
Because I watched that show religiously. Like I would wake up early in the morning when it would come on. I'd like watch it before school. I'd run home, come on like 5:30, right before DBZ, like 6 o'clock. Yeah, man. Yeah, I used to have to negotiate, con, and like trick my siblings so that I can get like 2 hours of like TV time. Like, don't you want to watch Crocodile Hunter? Like he's gonna fight a snake. Like who do you know that fights snakes? And then, like, it would be time for DBZ, and I'd be like, yo, like, come on, go Super Saiyan. Like, don't you want to see that? You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like,
man.
yeah, I was, like, one of those big brothers. So, yeah. like I watched a lot of Animal Planet. Like I used to know when I was a kid, I used to read a lot. Like reading for me, like I started off like the first book I ever read was like Green Eggs and Ham, and after that, I didn't like fictional books really too much. So
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I don't. Read
I was gonna say Matt can relate. He's like, if it's like, why write it down if it didn't happen?
Never happened. Why do I have to read it?
Like so, it's funny because I have a different lease on life now. Cause,
Yeah.
like, I like to read manga. And I like to read like light novels and stuff like that.
manga?
So like manga is like comics, but like
Okay.
Japanese.
Okay.
And a real manga fan would be upset if I said that, if they heard me say that.
Like, describe it like that.
Yeah, if they heard me describe it like that, because it's like it's not the same, and it really isn't the same.
Okay.
It really isn't.
It's not the
but
same
it's
as
the
comics?
only way. No, it's the only way I can explain it to you because
You have no idea.
yeah.
So
But,
you went from Green Eggs and Ham to
Right.
Moby
Yeah.
Dick to.
But I had
comics.
a point I was gonna make.
Okay.
So I read Green Eggs and Ham, and that was like the first book I read. It was a fictional book, but after that I didn't read fiction because I
Because
just
that put you
felt
off
like
of
it was
fiction.
ridiculous. Like, my mom was like trying to give me like Cat in the Hat or some crap like that. And I was just like, I don't care about a cat in a hat, but I do want to read about this venomous snake that could kill you in about 20 minutes if it bites you and you cannot get to a hospital. Like, you know, I used to read like a lot of like animal books. And, like, I was a big fan of like autobiographies, like Malcolm X's autobiographies.
I just finished that. I
Yeah.
just finished that for the first time.
And so I still like to read autobiographies every now and again.
Nice.
But yeah, so that was where I was going, and I was like that for most of my life. Like when I was a kid, I was only reading like real stuff,
Like
you know what I
history and
mean?
stuff like that,
Like
yeah.
history is huge on history. Actually, it's funny you mention that, but like I'm big on history, and so like it was more interesting to find out that Christopher Columbus was actually a murderer than like this guy who like discovered like America, which he actually didn't discover. It was a complete mistake. But,
It's already here.
yeah. Anyway.
There were people here.
It's like, well, that's a whole different thing.
There were already people.
That's our next episode. Next episode. Yeah, no.
But yeah, you know, so like I was like really into like nonfiction books and you know stuff like that.
No.
But as I got older, like manga became really appealing because I would watch these animes and they'd be done in like 12 episodes, but there's like 500 chapters. Like Naruto was the first manga I ever read, and when I was a kid, I didn't even know that existed. I didn't know every anime that came on had its own manga that was further along than the anime. So like when I was watching DBZ, I'm in the Frieza saga, not knowing that the Cell saga's already out, but you gotta like get access to the manga.
Books out and the
Yeah,
show
so
is
imagine
behind
if
the
like
book.
you know
Okay.
The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
All right, so imagine if Walking Dead season 1 is on air, but season 2 has already been written in a book.
Wasn't Game of Thrones
that's
like
like Game
that?
of Thrones,
Yeah.
right?
All right, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
like Game of Thrones, so I don't even know. My girlfriend tried to get me on Game of Thrones. I watched like the first 3 episodes, and I was like, "What is this?" Actually,
No.
You gotta give it a chance. You gotta power through.
bro. I
the
tried
first few
7 episodes, and I was just like I'm
You gave it the
I'm-
good college
I-
Yeah,
try.
I was
gave it
gonna say,
real
that's a try.
I gave it a real try because I was like, you know, if I get into this, then we can watch it together. And it counts as like all the time. And I'm like, yeah, like.
And then it counts.
I'm on like episode 7. I'm like, this is terrible. Like, I don't get it. Like, I don't know why anybody would waste. Cause like when I watch something, I'm like, or read something, I'm like, yo, I'm wasting my life on this. You know what I mean? So like, I ain't about to. I wasted 7 hours of my life that I'm never getting back. I'm good. Like, it didn't catch me then. It ain't gonna catch me like later. So I just gave up on that. But like, so I was watching Naruto, and Naruto was bomb. Like, actually, Naruto was not that great. Naruto, the first like half, like when he was a kid, I was like, oh, this is good, but it's not great. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, it's good. And I actually stopped watching after like Sasuke left the village because I was like, oh, like that's alright. And it just there became a lot of fillers because like anime does that. Like they'll put mad fillers, and like Americans ain't got time for that. Like our attention spans are so trash. Like we don't even want to imagine like what will life be like outside of the main story. We're just like,
Give us a
who's the
15.
next person dying? You know what I mean? So I was like, man, like, you know, third Hokage died, Sasuke wilding out, like, what's next? And then there's this whole like time gap where like Naruto's training and we don't know what's gonna happen. I'm like, oh, I ain't got time for that. Like, but I found out that there was a part 2, which is Shippuden, right? Bro, 10 episodes in Shippuden, I was hooked. I watched all those episodes. I don't found like a
He binge watched before they had binge watching,
dude,
right? Like,
bro. I what do you call it? I was in college and I took like 3 days off because like I binge watched Naruto in like a day and a half, and then I found out there was 300 chapters that I didn't read. that I didn't know, like the information, because that's where the anime stopped. And I'm like, oh, I gotta read all of this. You know what I mean? And I didn't start out like, oh, I'm gonna read all of it. My friend was like, yo, you should just read the manga, because like the next season's not gonna come out until next year. And I'm like, I don't want to read the manga. Like, I don't want to read no fiction. And bro, I started
comic book and a manga book.
Yo, bro, dude, bro, I started. I read that first chapter. And it was like chapter 2. Next thing you know, I was in like chapter 300. Next thing you know, I'm on chapter like 520. I haven't slept in like 10 hours.
Oh man,
you know what I mean? Like,
that's crazy.
I'm eating pizza and reading manga, and watching jiu-jitsu. I only stopped to go train. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I was training and reading manga, and that's when I got hooked. I was like, all right, maybe I need to figure out what this manga stuff is about, and it's pretty good because like a lot of the like I'm big into like plots. Like I do like plots. Like I found that out through reading mangas. So like the better the story, the more intrigued I'll be.
Right.
I mean, I just realized that like when I was a kid, these like fictional books for kids just weren't that entertaining. You know what I mean? So like it was just like a waste of my time, and I just didn't want to do it.
Nope.
But like you start reading these mangas and like, you know, like these light novels that they have, bro. Japanese be doing their thing with these mangas, and I was like, bro, at this point now, like I buy them. Like, I buy them. So that I can read them, because like you get a light novel, it's like 300 pages. That's a book. That's a real book. You know what I mean? And this like is very descriptive, very detailed, amazing plot, and like they play on like the reality, like, you know, they play on reality. You know what I mean? But they create it in this fictional world where there's no repercussion. You have the freedom to think like, what if this was real? You know what I mean? It's kind of cool. You know, Attack on Titan is like that. They have like this whole like attack on like the social dynamic, the political and like social dynamic, and if you read it and you read the manga, you kind of like peep how like everything that people are told is a lie, right, and there's only a select group of people that know that this is a complete lie. I wonder where and if you really put some time in it, you'd be like, that sounds familiar. That kind of sounds like us. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and it kind of hooks you in, you know, and it's pretty good. That's cool. So you should give it a try.
So if I were to enter the world of manga, what would be a good first?
So what I would recommend first is not reading it, because like if you don't like reading and you try to read it,
I like to read.
Yeah, are you? Well, right, so you like to read more than you like to watch?
No,
like, movies?
No.
All right, so
much rather watch.
Yeah, most people are like that. So like you want to watch something that catches your mind.
Yeah,
and then like you already have like the imagery. I think, you know, because I think if I would have read manga first, I wouldn't have like the imagination to like go into like the world that the book is trying to put you in.
I understand. Yeah.
Because I'd just be like reading the actual, like I'd be reading the book without imagining like the action, the scene, the scenery. You know what I mean? Like,
so the show gives you like a starting point. For like, okay, this is
the
like
show gives you like a baseline for how you can follow along when you actually read the manga, or because like some mangas have pictures, right? Most mangas have pictures, but if you read a light novel, sorry, I should make that distinction. A lot of the light novels that I've read, they don't really have as many pictures. They don't have many pictures at all, actually. You know, you read like 60 pages and not get a picture. And they just throw you something in there. So like, if you don't like have like some experience like watching anime that you like, then it can be annoying. You know, trying to read a light novel, for example. But it's dope once you have like the imagination to kind of like create the world in your head based on the words that are coming off the page.
Where would we find this?
So here's the funny thing. Like, where do you find anime, or where do you find like light novels and manga?
Let's start with anime.
All right, so you can find anime on Crunchyroll. Man, Crunchyroll should pay me.
On what?
Crunchyroll, yeah.
Crunchyroll.
Yeah,
Literally
Crunchyroll.
never heard of this.
Yeah, it's an app, right?
Okay.
Actually, I can show you right now.
Crunchyroll.
Yeah, Crunchyroll. So like, you have Crunchyroll. See that?
Well, you do.
Like, I'm watching Yu Yu Hakusho. I was watching that on the way down.
Okay.
Yeah, Crunchyroll.
Right. And is it like subtitles? Like, what's the situation here?
So like, honestly, when I've been trying to like practice in Portuguese, I'll be watching anime in Portuguese subtitles. So I can practice.
Oh, that's a good way to learn a language. To like watch a cartoon.
Because I've known Brazilians for like 7 years now, and my Portuguese is still like
it's still not as good.
Yeah, but you got all these. It's separated by genres and all that stuff. It's pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Crunchyroll.
Crunchyroll. You look at, and Netflix is doing a good job too. Not as good as Crunchyroll, but Netflix is doing a good job now making anime. But I would start with Crunchyroll because you can find everything on Crunchyroll, and if it ain't on Crunchyroll, you can find it on Hulu. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And these are like 40. Like, how long are the episodes? Like, what's our commitment here?
Typically 20 minutes.
Okay.
OVAs can be like 40 minutes, and what those are just kind of like extra, you know what I mean, or like movie specials. It's like specials.
Okay.
You know, so like you know how like you'd have a TV show and then season finale, and,
and then it's a bit longer,
like twice.
Yeah. Yep.
Regular episode. It's kind of like that.
Okay.
So they have those every now and again, but not all anime do that. Some of them do. If they're really popular, they'll do it because it's like almost like fan service a little bit, where like they're just like giving something for the fans. But like, yeah, like you should start with Crunchyroll, bro. I can make you a top 10 list. Everybody, all my students, like after if they've been at the gym for like 2-3 months, they'll be like, yo, give me a top 10. I'm trying to get an anime. Like,
really?
Like I didn't give it a try, but I'll be watching your stories, or I'll be listening to you talk about it, and I'm like, yo, I kind of want to give it a try. One of my students just actually did this like a few days ago, because 2 of my students did actually. One of them had heard about Yu Yu Hakusho, but then it said it was trash. It didn't catch off. I'm like, bro, like, watch 5 episodes. He made it past, so he only watched like the first episode, like half of it or something like that. Like I don't even know how many he watched. I remember him saying like a point, and I'm like, oh, give it a second try. Then I hit him up 2 days later. I'm like, yo, did you like it? What's up? He's like, yo, I'm on episode like 20. Like, this guy has a full-time job. So to be on episode 20, that's a lot of time. Like that means you ain't doing nothing. Like, you know what I mean? You're watching animes on break. You know what I mean? He's like, yo, like I forgot how good
What's
the
his
show
name?
was.
Where's he
like,
working? No, I'm kidding.
But
Sounds like a time-consuming hobby.
it can
like,
be, but
you
I
can
just
get
watch
sucked
it.
into it.
It can be. I watch it just when I have free time. So like for me, I schedule my time. So like I make windows of time, you know, and then I function around those windows, you know, and like for example, like on the weekends, there's just like unlimited. Like I don't regulate the weekends. Like I'll stay up to 3:00 if I want to, watching it. But I still have to do what I have to do. If I have to train, I just have to train, you know, or lift. But I don't mind it as much because on the weekends the training sessions aren't as intense as the ones during the week, so I don't have to be too crazy. But like yeah, like typically Thursday to Friday and Friday to Saturday, if I want to binge or go crazy, I'll break night. I won't break night because I don't really do that too much. But I'll stay up till like 2:00 watching anime. You know what I mean?
And what time did you start watching?
After I finished teaching, after I finished classes, so like maybe like
9. Okay.
10 o'clock. I feel like you go 5 hours in.
Yeah.
You know? But I also have to read something too. Like I try to put like this is not good. This is not good enough. But like I try to have like 1-to-1 ratio for like the time that I spend like reading something productive.
Okay.
To the time that I spend watching anime, and that's how I like kind of like guilt myself in.
Yeah, I like that.
Reading more because like sometimes I'll just be on like there'll be a period where I won't read something productive for like a month, and I'm like, yo, like you're tripping. Like if you watch an episode of anime, like you gotta read like you know a chapter of this book or something like that. Or, like I'll time myself and I'll be like, all right, 23 minutes of like reading. All right, and I can watch it. You know what I mean? Like you know, or like if I want to play video games, then I have to like cut down the anime so that the anime and video games don't overweigh to like the reading the books and shit. It's a process.
Life balance.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah, or else next thing you know, it's like you breaking night and all this kind of nonsense, and you got no control over your time. And it's not a good thing to like not like because I didn't realize this until I started paying attention to my phone's like metrics. But it's just not a good thing when like you spend like you know like 8 hours in a week of like watching like anime or something like that. But and then you think you're like, how many hours did I spend reading something productive? You know what I mean? And it's just like not enough time, you know.
The phone didn't log it. That's all, you know. The
Right.
phone didn't log.
You can log yourself, but that's what I do. That's why I make a schedule and I log it because I try to keep myself too crazy because like it's almost like overeating. You know what I mean? And then I find it like honestly when I put restrictions on how much I can watch, I enjoy watching it more.
Sure. Yep.
You know what I mean? Because I'm looking forward to it.
It's like a treat.
Thinking about it.
Yeah,
It's a treat.
yeah.
You know, so like you have to like restrict yourself.
Yep.
You know, and I do that. I didn't do that
that.
when I was younger. I'm not gonna hold you. But like the last few years of my life, yeah, I restrict. 100%.
All right.
Love it.
That was like an hour and a half right there.
53 minutes.
Anything? That's pretty much it, right? Anything you want to go out on?
No, just want to thank you for your time, man.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah,
Of course.
From my way back at the top, now I'm back at the finals. I had to climb, repeating the climate. I ain't declined when I was declined, so I was inclined to go and decline.